ego scendere.
This video is just for entertainment. Ego Ascendier does not give any science-based training advice. We only express our opinions about fitness.
This episode, a workout with reflections on Bruce Lee's philosophy. The workout actually started with 20 minutes of joint movements. But we skipped that in the video and jumped directly to the strength training. The guy has chosen deadlift technique training as his strength move today. The technique training is simply doing single repetition sets with progressively higher weights. Today, he will ramp up the weight to one heavy single at 90% of his 1 RM, where 1 RM stands for the maximum weight he could lift for one repetition. Strength isn't just some kind of innate quality of the muscles, it's also a skill. And in order to become good at a skill, it needs to be practiced often. But he stops already at one lift at 90% today in order to avoid a burnout. The late actor and martial artist Bruce Lee had something to say about skill.
I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times.
The quote can be found on a Facebook page with Bruce Lee's name, and the page seems to be driven by family members of the late actor. So we believe the quote to be authentic. However, the quote is taken out of context. Our interpretation might not be fully in agreement with what Bruce Lee meant.
For instance, how could anyone practice 10,000 kicks and restrain himself from practicing any one of these kicks more than once? I mean, after having come up with 9,999 different kicks, it would be quite hard to come up with kick number 10,000 that would be sufficiently different from the first 9,999 kicks for it to be counted. And if you practice the to-be kick number 10,000 and it turns out to be one of the already practiced 9,999 first kicks, then you will not become the person who has practiced 10,000 kicks once. You will, in fact, become the person who has practiced 9,998 kicks once and one kick twice.
Why didn't Bruce Lee say what kind of woman he feared?
Maybe Bruce Lee feared no woman no matter how many times that woman practiced one kick.
Or just maybe, Bruce Lee feared all women, no need to practice kicks at all.
I wonder, would Bruce Lee have feared you for an arbitrary kick out of the 10,000 kicks if you practiced it 10,000 times? Or is there some kick that could be practiced less, and still Bruce Lee would have feared the man who practiced that kick?
Noah, you are just talking about men that Bruce Lee would fear. Why couldn't Bruce Lee fear a woman?
I am sorry, but that was Bruce Lee's own words. Maybe if a woman practiced one kick 20,000 times, then Bruce Lee would fear her.
And that is supposed to appease me.
If you practice just one kick, and practice it daily 100 times, then you need to practice just 100 days to reach 10,000 times.
It seems a little bit easy to instill fear in Bruce Lee. I mean, isn't he supposed to be one of the greatest martial artists of all times? Any 18-year-old, man or woman mind you, could practice one kick 100 times daily, even sprinkle in some rest days and be done with the 10,000 total within 5 months.
You are right, it seems a little bit too easy. Also, he wasn't very clear with how the kick should be practiced. Is it enough to just kick in the air or on a heavy bag? Or would it be required to practice the kick with a sparring partner at some level of skill?
Now the guy in the video will do 8 push-ups. It's part of a sequence he will repeat 3 times. Notice that he pushes his heels forward towards his head. He also has his elbows quite close to his body, as opposed to having the arms flared out from his shoulders. This way his weight distribution shifts more to the arms. The extra weight on the arms makes the push-ups slightly more challenging per push-up. He also doesn't go all the way down, where the chest would start to establish contact pressure with the floor. He usually associates going all the way down with pain in his shoulders. Next exercise in the sequence is kettlebell hip snaps. He will use a 24 kilograms kettlebell. The kettlebell hip snaps are also commonly known as kettlebell swings, but we prefer to call them kettlebell hip snaps, because the kettlebell swing motion can be generated by other means than hip snaps, and there will be less room for confusion by calling them kettlebell hip snaps.
These 10,000 kicks, is it per leg, or should it be divided between the legs, or could you train just one kick on one leg only and be feared by Bruce Lee?
If you train just one kick 10,000 times with one leg, will you not grow asymmetric?
Maybe it's the asymmetric appearance that Bruce Lee fears.
We can halve the work to come up with 10,000 unique kicks, if you count left and right sides as two.
Would Bruce Lee have feared a man that has practiced to kicks 5,000 times?
I think there could be a sweet spot between practicing just one kick and practicing 10,000 kicks.
I wonder if Bruce Lee really meant what he said in the statement. What if it instead should be interpreted figuratively?
So how could you train then to be feared by Bruce Lee if he was alive?
That's another problem with the statement. We need Bruce Lee to be alive to check if he is in fear.
Maybe it wasn't about fear at all. Maybe Bruce Lee just meant that you would have better odds of winning a fight if you only practiced a few techniques a lot rather than many techniques a few times.
Why didn't he say so from the beginning then?
Allegedly, Bruce Lee was also a poet, and maybe he saw greater poetic value in the statement, as it is quoted.
Is that philosophy?
I don't know, maybe it should be sorted under the headline motivational words.
So, are we in fact talking about how to make the odds better for the next fight?
It appears that that is the best interpretation we could make of his statement.
You never know if you will get into a situation where you need to fight.
A middle-aged guy will do better by staying out of trouble.
But there's no guarantee he won't be assaulted, say at a parking lot.
It could happen.
So, how many times and which kicks should he practice to have the best odds of walking away?
Walking away, why not running away?
If he tries to run fast just like that, a pulled hamstring will surely be the result before he gets even 50 meters. And unless 50 meters means safety, he will be in a worse situation than before he started to run.
The kettlebell hip snaps were followed by cleans. Now, the first sequence ends with snatches.
Maybe a middle-aged guy shouldn't rely on kicks in a self-defense situation.
I recall, though I have no direct quote, that Bruce Lee talked about the intercepting fist.
That sounds like a better option.
Why does it sound like a better option?
Because he can punch without warming up. Kicking, just like running, might just damage him more than his opponent.
Maybe Bruce Lee's statement about 10,000 kicks wasn't meant for middle-aged guys.
No, he should have said that he fears the man who has practiced the intercepting fist 10,000 times, with specifics on how to practice it.
I guess you have to buy a book for that. You won't get it from a motivational quote. There he has completed the first sequence of 3. And we skip the following 2 sequences in the video to save time. Now the final movement for this workout. The Turkish get-up. He usually starts with his strong side first, and then does his weak side.
Why does he do that? Often the YouTube weirdos recommends that you start with the weak side. Is it just because he wants to be weirder than the rest?
No, he reasons that if you compete, it is usually an advantage to be second. When you know what your opponent achieved, you can aim to beat that.
So his weak side sees what his strong side does and thinks it can beat that.
This, he believes, helps to bring up the weak side to the level of the strong side. As opposed to starting with the weak side and holding the strong side back in the second set. which he thinks will give a smaller total stimulus and also be less effective in evening out the side differences.
But we have no scientific evidence to support this with.
Also, this works only well if the difference between the weak side and the strong side is small. If the difference is too big, then the weak side will be overwhelmed and give up. When it comes to the Turkish get-up, he has no side that is the stronger through the complete movement. Therefore, he mixes which sides he starts with from one workout to another.
What is the Turkish get-up good for?
You mean if practicing the Turkish get-up has some carry over to other activities, hypertrophy, fat burning, or anything?
That is what I meant.
Compared to other activities, we believe the Turkish get-up to be inferior in terms of hypertrophy and fat burning. The shoulder of the arm that holds the kettlebell must work hard with stabilization. And the Turkish get-up also has a meditative element. You must be highly focused through the whole movement. Otherwise, you just might drop the kettlebell on your head.
Do you have to have a kettlebell to do the Turkish get-up?
Not at all, but a kettlebell might just be the easiest object to start with, counted per kilograms load.
What is Turkish with the get-up?
Allegedly, Turkish wrestlers use the exercise back in the day. Many YouTube weirdos prefer to do the Turkish get-up as part of their warming up. But he does them at the end with, for him, quite heavy weight. 5 repetitions per side with a fairly heavy weight is challenging.
We fear not the person who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, and we fear not the person who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. But the person who has practiced for kicks 2,500 times per kick.